Hello. So today we're going to be talking about David Grieg's play Oedipus the Visionary. And this play has a very special place in my heart because the first scholarly paper that I had accepted for publication was actually about this play. So it's a really interesting adaptation of Sophocles' Oedipus the King. It's set in contemporary South Africa, and so it's set in contemporary South Africa, but actually, interestingly enough, it's still, I argue, very much a play for Greig's Scottish audience. Because one of the things that he talks about actually in the introduction is this idea that in Scotland, in the UK, the systems of labor that support society are much more invisible, whereas, and particularly the systems of underprivileged people, people doing menial labor, working class people, things like this, are substantially less visible than they are in South Africa, with the township structure around cities like Johannesburg. And so that's one of the things that Greig is very interested in the play, is this idea of whose labor counts, particularly in spaces where we have this neoliberal mythologization of the individual. So one of the things that neoliberalism very much brings to the forefront, and we see this especially in the United States, is this notion of self-reliance and pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, with a rejection, or at the very least a significant downplaying of the larger social forces that make it difficult for people to succeed financially, for people to gain promotions, for people to move out of their socioeconomic class, etc., etc. And so this is one of the things that's really central to this play, at least in my reading of it, is this critique of the idea of individualism and the way that individualism erases the labor of working class people, poor people, those doing menial labor, and particularly the way that this erases the labor often of racially or ethnically diverse underclasses. So in the U.S., African Americans still are working class and poor in much higher per capita rates than whites. The same thing with Hispanics, and so on and so on. In the UK, people of South Asian descent, people of Caribbean descent struggle financially at much higher rates per capita than white Britons. So this is what Greig is very interested in, and we actually get this, I think. So we get this idea very distinctly in a couple of different ways. One of the scenes that I really think is super, super important in this play is scene 5, which is set in a marketplace. And it takes us through these sort of capitalist aspirations, these ambitions of what these poor people are going to do if they can get up enough money. So like man 1 says, I'm saving up to go to college, to the Harvard School of Business. Man 2 says, I'm sick of living every day on dry bread and boiled cabbage stalks. I'm going to buy a fucking Happy Meal. Woman 1 says, my daughters are sick. With the money I'm going to go to travel, with the money I get, I'm going to travel to the capital. I'm going to buy an air ticket somewhere very far away. So we've got these ideas of like social uplift through education, whatever it is, this idea of just food security, this idea of being able to provide medical care to loved ones. So these sort of foundational aspirations that I think across societies we as human beings tend to have. But then as the scene goes on, these become increasingly complex. So like Man 2, I think his shift is really interesting because he starts wanting to buy a Happy Meal. The next time we hear from him, he says, I want to feel the warm burger meat fill my stomach, drink the cold drink, sit on the red chair, and know that I've done what I wanted only once. So we've gone then from, I want to buy a Happy Meal, so buying the thing, the consumer product that in its name even is meant to bring you enjoyment, to the actual sort of physical embodied experience of doing it. And then the last time that we hear from Man 2, we have another shift. So we've gone from consumerism to embodied enjoyment. And then with his third thing, he says, I've known what it's like to shit burger meat onto the dry earth by the roadside. So here we go this sort of full distance of the consumerist fantasy from you can buy a thing that promises happiness to the actual embodied enjoyment of that thing to that thing is shit. The thing becomes worthless because it's not the thing in itself that brings you joy. It's not even the thing in itself that you desire. Like, this is the Lacanian psychoanalytic point about this scene for me, is it's what Jacques Lacan calls the objet petit a, or the objet a. It's the symbol of the thing that we think that we desire, when in reality what we desire is desire itself. We as humans are desiring subjects. And so when we get the thing that we want, we realize that it's actually not the thing we want. But the other thing, the other one I want to mention here is Man 6, who we only hear from once. Yeah. So Man 6 closes out the scene. He's the last one that we hear from. He says, I'll only buy drink with it. Then I'll go to a place I know, a dark valley not far from here. The grass there is still lush. I'll lie under a tree alone, and I'll drink. And when I'm drunk, I'll drink more. And when I'm very drunk, I'll drink more. And then I'll ask myself what my name is, and if I can remember it, I'll drink more. And when I'm no longer conscious of anything, I'll smash one of the bottles on a rock and cut my throat with the glass. So this is the sort of ultimate protest, in a way, against this sort of capitalist fantasy of buying your way to happiness, is this sort of destructive impulse to escape that consumer cycle. But the other sense in which we get Greig's critique of radical capitalist or neoliberal individualism is with Oedipus himself, because he starts out very much. So Oedipus is the white landowner, and of course in South Africa, the white landowner, the white settler, there's a long and complicated history of this figure. This play is supposed to be post-apartheid, but even after apartheid, white South Africans maintained a disproportionate amount of control of land, as well as financial resources, influence over government policy, and so on and so on. And there's a massive amount of scholarship on that, and I don't want to go too much into that. But Oedipus is the white landowner. He's done some good improvements. Like he talks about here, in this one speech, he talks about building a dam, building a road, driving away the persecutors. And when he says this, he presents it very starkly in individualist terms. He says, I have no God, no protection from any God. God didn't build the dam or road or drive away your persecutors. It was a man, a person, me. If there's a reason for this plague, I will find and cure it. So this is, and we've got several other pieces here where he talks about personal property ownership, his land, things like this. So at the beginning, he's very clearly an individualist who doesn't recognize the importance of community. But by the end of the play, when he has found out that Jocasta is his mother, that he is the cause of the plague, and so on, and he's blinded himself, we have a really important speech from the priest. So the blinded Oedipus sort of wanders into this ritual gathering, and the priest gives this really important speech that symbolically incorporates Oedipus back into the community of human suffering. So the priest says, parent becomes child, child becomes parent. The one has been the other will be the one. And so on, beyond all imagining. Against time we are nothing. Smoke, utter silence. Our life no more than the memory of the fire contained in the ash. In the circle of water we burn, we make heat and light, we consume ourselves. Smoke, utter silence, ash. Fasten your eyes to Oedipus. We are him, his life ours. Limping, maimed, maddened and broken, made of pain, what don't we know about ourselves? In a single moment of terror Oedipus was born. We watched as he was immersed in nature. Violently, without pity, his mind and body dissolved. He became nothing. He became all time. Nature shatters all humanity. We are Oedipus. We are nothing. What can't we see? So this, I think, brilliant speech by the priest near the end of the play signals the ultimate sort of reincorporation of Oedipus back into a human community, because the community is the conglomeration of experiences, the shared experiences of the participants. And by being in that community, by having experiences that are shared, Oedipus is reincorporated. And the community is strengthened in some ways by having him as a member.